This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
Welcome everyone to the Thursday, January 16th meeting of the CPA Committee. This meeting will be conducted in person and via remote participation simultaneously. And the meeting is being recorded, and we have a quorum here, and we're going to get started. So the first order of business is the election of a chairperson, vice chairperson, and secretary. Per the CPA Committee's rules, you elect all three of those positions, though I continue taking notes as your staff person. So I think the CPA Committee could discuss what they want the secretary to do, or if they want to leave that position vacant. But that is a position in your.
I don't think we ever did anything.
Yeah, we never did.
We never had a secretary.
Okay. Hello, welcome. Come on in.
Need a nomination?
Yeah, so are there any nominations for chairperson?
I'll nominate Mr. Kavanaugh as chair.
I'll second.
Okay, so we'll do a roll call vote. All in favor?
Unless there's anybody else that's
yeah.
not,
Are there any other nominations for chair?
I certainly am open if someone else dying to do it. I mean, I've actually enjoyed doing it, but I don't even take that pleasure from anybody else.
Okay, all right, so then we'll do a roll call vote. Committee member Rist.
Just a committee member.
Committee member Rist.
Aye.
Committee member Peak.
Aye.
Committee member Church.
Yes, aye. Aye.
Vecchia.
Aye.
Ryan. Oh,
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Yes.
And is
Greg
committee
is
member Roland able to vote?
Yes, I am. Aye. Could you hear me?
All right, motion carries.
Thank you.
So now take it from
It's
here.
An honor. All right. Thank you, Ava. Nicely done to lead off that meeting. We need a vice chairperson, and our vice chairperson from last year is no longer with us, Jessica Allen. But we have people in the room that do have chairing experience. So if there's anybody that would like to make a nomination for vice chair.
I will nominate Dan Rist to be the vice chair.
Does anybody want to second that nomination?
Second.
Excellent. Anybody else? Any other discussion or nominations? All right. Do we have to do a roll call vote on this?
Greg is remote.
Because Greg is remote. Thanks, Greg. All right. Right. You could do the roll call, I guess, still, because because you'll put it in as you go, right? For the attendant.
You can do it.
Do you want me to do it?
I do.
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
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 Aye. Greg.
Aye.
Excellent. I want to officially welcome Dan Rist back to the committee. We are very excited I feel a little like it's like Michael Jordan when he retired and then he came back.
Can't get rid of
You
him.
know, it's like you can't hold the greatest down. They got to come back and have more to give. So thank you.
This isn't on the agenda, Matt.
I know. I'm adding that anyway. Before we go any further, one thing we've started to get in the practice of, which I think has been really good, especially for remote, is introduce ourselves and say how we're on the committee. So I'd like to take a moment to do that. Just say what
I'm
position.
Dan Rist. I was appointed by the city council. I used to be a city council, and I used to be on this committee. I'm happy to do it.
Excellent.
I'm Tom Peak. I'm city councilor for precinct 3, and I'm the finance committee person.
I'm Mary Church. I'm a commissioner of the Easthampton Housing Association, and I was appointed.
I'm Ken Vecchia, and I'm from the planning board. And, that's it.
Jay Ryan, I represent the Conservation Commission.
Greg.
Greg Rowland. I am a CPA on the CPA committee, and I'm a city council appointee.
Excellent. I want to welcome everybody back for another year. Thank you all for volunteering your time. I want to especially welcome Mary to the committee, who is the only person that is totally new to this committee. So we're really grateful to have you. Thank you.
I'm really happy to be here.
Excellent. Secretary, there was a little discussion about whether I don't recall ever having that. And as long as you're okay continually doing the minutes, which I think I'm okay not electing a secretary.
Sure.
Is that, do we need to vote on that? Need to vote on that? I don't think so. We're just gonna not vote on it.
Yeah.
I think it's good. Excellent. Approval of minutes from 12/19/24. Remember, you don't have to have been in attendance to vote yay on the minutes. I'm not sure if we have a quorum of people that are here tonight. That's not the minutes that were here then. But before we vote on, is there any questions or comments on the minutes?
No.
All right. Is there a motion?
A motion that we approve the minutes from 12/19.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor of approving the minutes from 12/19, and I'm just gonna go around.
Abstain.
Aye.
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 Greg?
Aye.
Hey.
Excellent. And I'm an aye. So that's Dan abstaining and everybody else. Minutes are approved. Thank you for taking those as always. Really appreciate it.
And any committee member can send me edits in the intervening month or in the week, I guess, after you get the minutes before, if you have any edits.
Thank you. Is there any public, both online and in the room, that wants to speak to anything that is not on the agenda? So something other than Lathrop Valley CDC, Spray Park, or Skate Park? All right, thank you. City officials, any reports from other committees? Do you have anything, Ava, that you wanted to? Anything for city council that's relevant?
Hmm.
I have.
Yeah.
When did CPA matters coming before the city council, the last things that were appropriated in December? I'm just kidding.
Well, the thing that was appropriate, so the pickleball court already went through.
Yeah, so
And everything else, I believe, is going to be new business this coming Wednesday. So then the Wednesday after that, we would expect it to be
at
in
finance, which should be the first Wednesday in February.
Okay, thank you.
Or, wait, is that true? Because the first Wednesday, we usually have city council. So it'd be like the last Wednesday in January, I think, would be finance. So the 29th, I think. And then after that, the first Wednesday should be the public hearing in the full council.
Thank you.
Of course.
All right. Account balances and open product updates.
Okay. So here we have our account balances. Let's see if I can get it as big as possible. So here at the start of the meeting, we're looking at this purple line, which is the available balances before the pending applications for third quarter fiscal year 25. So we have $1,949 in open space and recreation set aside, $110,000 and $1 in the historic preservation set aside, $914 in the affordable housing set aside, $429,615 in the undesignated fund, $450,000 in the reserve fund, which once again functions as a budgeted undesignated fund. So those reserve funds can be spent in any of the aforementioned categories. It was just budgeted for instead of the undesignated. So that brings us to a total of just shy of $1 million. That already includes the safe harbor reserve.
So that's my question.
Yep.
Where is that there? Where is the
That's
safe harbor?
line 14.
Right above it, you see the 120.
Yeah. got it.
Yeah. So right here. And I can also show the open balances, and then maybe we'll come back to the available balances, but the open project balances, these are updated as of January 3rd. So these are relatively recent numbers from Hadel's office. You'll see our two most recent appropriations. Pickleball, I guess, actually now should have $100,000, but as of January 3rd, it did not. Oh, you can't see that yet. Excuse me. Here it is. So here we are. Pickleball should now have $100,000, but it did not as of January 3rd, so it's not shown here. And the non-encumbered remaining is the funds that we don't have an open purchase order for in each one of the accounts.
It's money that has been awarded but not spent.
Not spent or is not locked under a specific contract with a specific vendor.
Yeah.
So in terms of money not spent, you're looking at column E here. So the committee on last month heard, or 2 months ago heard a report from Old Town Hall, and we were working on a new project funding agreement and grant contract that has been delayed in full approval through the various upstairs from the auditor's office and the mayor. So there are some details that are still being worked out, and I don't have any more updates than that.
You're in the library. Did you want to?
Yeah, I can speak to the library. So just dropped in here, let me pull it up. Dropped into the CPA share as of this afternoon. I spoke with Elizabeth, who was the former head of the library board. And she's actually no longer on the commission, but she was the one or on the board, but she was the one that Jamie was working with on this historic preservation restriction. And she communicated that they are no longer pursuing a historic preservation restriction, and so are willing to return the $15,000, which per the CPA's project funding agreement, you don't actually have to have permission from the person to return those funds, because their project funding agreement had expired 2 years ago.
It's not a bad idea to ask.
It's not a bad idea to ask, for sure. So we had been in communication with them. I'd been in communication with them since November, and they took it. She brought it back to the board, and they discussed it and decided that they were not pursuing the historic preservation restriction at this time, namely because they didn't have, this was a Jamie project, and they weren't willing to pursue it without city support, which at this current moment, there isn't city support for this.
Well, thank you for your work in approaching money that is out there that we're trying to get back. And $15,000 is not enough, so we're glad to have that back.
Right. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was going to move on to something else, but you tell me.
Yeah, well, that money will be returned to the reserve for historic resources, which is where it was appropriated from.
Right. And that won't be available, just so everybody in the community knows, that won't be available until the next fiscal year. So even though we're essentially getting it back now, any money that is recovered from things that have been appropriated won't hit the budget until July of 25. Can you go back to the open project?
Yeah, do you want to go on that, Mason?
Oh, I'm sorry, John.
Yeah, I just wanted to give a quick update on the Nonotuck Stone building that still has
Great,
money
thank
out
you.
there. I have a conference call tomorrow with the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission to discuss where we are in that process. So by next meeting for you guys, I will have either a letter saying we're going to return the funds and reapply later on, or we're going to move forward with a game plan with them. So I wanted to give you guys an update on that.
Thank you, John. Really, it's especially as we're looking forward to more projects through parks. Not having that just hanging out there and knowing we're going one way or another is really helpful. So thank you.
That's great. I can pull it back.
Yeah.
Yep.
Go back to that, so everybody sees what this is talking about. So back in
Oh, there it is. I did
fiscal
want-
year 19, so this is, back 6 years ago now. There was money awarded to the Stone House in Nonotuck Park where the bathrooms are for restoration. And as part of a prior discussion, we had reached out to John to sort of get an update on that. So that's the only other thing that I feel like is noteworthy for tonight is just the money that is up here that is awarded to people that we're going to be talking to. So we can pull this back up as we get there, but for instance, the Valley CDC has 69,000 in their funds
Oh, yeah.
there. Or no, that was, remaining.
Non-encumbered.
Non-encumbered remaining, 25.
So
Anyway,
they can speak
so
to the
we'll,
specifics.
yeah,
of that
so if
before I
for
can.
people that we're gonna talk to later, this is something that we'll probably want to hear. Any other questions from the committee on these numbers? All right, let's go to new business. And our first new business 2025 is Lathrop. Barbara, thank you so much for coming back.
You're welcome.
Come on up to the table.
All right.
And we're excited to hear from everybody. Just that we do have 4 things for new business, so we'll try to keep them as
Try to do
relatively
this
brief. But
as expeditiously as possible. All right then.
I'm just, sorry, just for Mary's benefit, did you clarify just sort of our cycle of, we hear from
Yeah,
people
sure.
and then quarterly we just.
yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, and I'm sorry, Mary. This might seem like a lot that's new. So what we're trying, and we've been doing the past few months, is getting on a quarterly cycle where we are hearing from applicants
Okay.
over the course of 2 meetings, in this case, like January, February.
Mhm.
And then in March, so like sort of the 3rd month of the quarter is when we would vote to award
Okay.
money.
great.
And the idea behind that is to try to pool together, understand the needs that, if we get to a point where we have fewer funds than projects that are, almost every project that comes before here is valuable, right? But if we get to a point where we're not able to fully fund things, we understand kind of what is in competition for those funds.
Okay.
And so tonight, for the new business, we'll be hearing from folks that the first 2 have actually applied.
Right.
Those are ones we're going to be voting on in March. And then the other 2 we've encouraged, and this goes to everybody listening online too, we've encouraged the greater Easthampton community, anytime, because of our fiscal situation, anytime you are aware of potentially applying for money, the earlier you can let us know, the better, so we can consider those potential applications in hearing everything.
Mary, there's a little chart on the bottom of the agenda that has all the dates and everything.
Oh, great.
And Mary, don't be if there's any questions that you have all along the way about anything, don't be shy about asking, because
Yeah, I
we
won't
want
be.
you to feel caught up.
Well, I met with Ava this afternoon, so I've had crash course.
You know
So,
everything. There you go.
So I'm
Perfect.
good.
Excellent. All right, great.
But yes, that was one point that I didn't realize that it was happening every quarter.
There you go. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, Barbara, give us the update here.
Okay. I'm the project director and a resident at Lathrop, and there are others from the project here, from Lathrop and from Kestrel and from our contractors, Bay State Forestry, and they will be introduced in their turn. So the bottom line is we're asking for $69,382 to complete your funding for this 3-year project. So I want to argue that if you give us this money now and fund us for the whole thing, we can, number one, get a better outcome. We can have the land in better shape in terms of invasives at the end of this time, and we're going to explain how that is. And we can take advantage of a particular moment in time when we have a configuration of personnel and organizations that know what this is about, that have already been working on it, that are stable, that are committed, and that are ready to do this work. And so we're asking you to just fully fund us so that we can plan, so that we can write contracts with our contractors, and so that we can move forward and get this work done. So that's kind of the bottom line.
And just for people that weren't here on the committee last year, essentially the committee last year voted that Lathrop came to us with a 3-year plan, and looking at at that time, the fiscal reality, we voted to split it into 3 years. So instead of awarding the money for the 3 years, we essentially awarded a third of it to fund year 1. And I want to apologize on behalf of our committee and the city that money, because of gaps in staffing with the city, that money didn't actually get to Lathrop for several months. And so that,
Yesterday.
so that,
Ava
so
worked hard
so
on
that
this.
slowed, so that's,
So did you
so
all, I
that
know,
certainly
Scott.
slowed things down, and I apologize that, for all the hiccups that were there. So we have heard a lot of the, sort of the details of this application, and we did sort of, agree to this in principle beforehand, and then we agreed to it in actuality for 1 year for the money. And so that's just to set I don't know, especially for you two that weren't here for a year yet. Dan.
Are you asking for 69 or are you asking for 2 times 69? Because it's,
No, we're asking for 69 total.
so there's another application pending for next year.
No,
No,
This year, 2 and
what was
3.
awarded last year was 30.
it was 33 something, which was a third of what we asked for.
Right. And so
Now
this
we're
is
asking-
essentially,
Oh, I didn't.
yeah. So this is essentially what
My
she's
God,
saying
I'm
is,
sorry.
what she's saying is they're essentially applying now
33 is.
for the remaining 2/3 plus a 3% something.
Three.
Yeah, 3% increase for inflation or something that was,
Yep.
but so this is essentially the 2/3 remaining.
Represents 2/3.
2/3,
Okay,
yes.
I misunderstood the.
That's,
third.
I recognize that you weren't here, and just to get caught up.
All right. great.
Any other questions, just getting caught up of where we're at?
No, this is good.
Perfect. Continue, Barbara. Thank you.
Okay, so that's what we want to do. So, we've gone over a little bit of the history. There was this glitch in terms of the city getting us the money. We couldn't get the work done. And the invasors are still there. Lathrop and Kestrel are still there. Northampton funded us for the full 3 years. Their work got done. We did everything that was promised for 2024, except the work on the 78-acre conservation restriction in Easthampton, for which Kestrel holds the CR. We did everything except that because we didn't have your money. So we've shoved that work along. Now it will start in 2025. Okay. The invasives will still be there. Kestrel is still there. Lathrop is still there. But who really paid a price for this is our contractors. And Mike Abel is here today from Bay State, and Linkfish is online, and they were intending to do the work this fall. They had their staff and their equipment in place. And then because we couldn't get the paperwork done with the city, they couldn't do their work. So we basically stood them up. And they've been very, very accommodating and generous and good to us about that. And they are willing to pick up this work on the 78-acre CR and do it now in 2025, 26, and 27. And one of the reasons why we are asking for the rest of the money is going to be explained in a minute, is that we can achieve a better outcome if we have front loaded the money into the first year of invasive removal. And we'll get to that in just a minute.
Good question.
Yeah.
Northampton funded you for the full amount that you requested?
Yes,
How much was that?
19,000.
19,000, okay.
Their share is smaller because they have fewer CR acres. And also because in the past, the city of Northampton CPA funds have given us 4 grants. So their land is in better shape.
Mhm.
They've made that progress.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for the question. Any other questions? Okay, so first of all, I want to establish that we are all still committed to this money. So Holly, will you just say a word? This is Holly Smith-Beauvais, our Chief Financial Officer, and she's going to talk a little bit about Lathrop's participation in the past year and commitment to going forward.
Yeah, so this is a very important project for Lathrop as a community. It's really what we're known as, and I don't know if you all know, but we're part of a Kendall affiliation. So we're affiliated with a company called Kendall that runs 12 CCRCs around the country. And we've become the model because of Barbara and because of the funding and because of the work we've been doing. So this is a major pillar of what we do.
Is it a company or is it a non-profit?
We're a nonprofit.
You're a non-profit. Okay, I remember that from last time, and I feel
And we're
like,
100%, and we're not,
Yeah.
they don't own, they don't own us. We're an independent.
okay, I think that's an important
501c3.
point. So I
didn't
just
mean
wanted to clarify
Yeah,
that.
I
for the
didn't
committee.
mean to confuse
Yeah,
that
keep
issue.
going.
But we have 3 pillars in our strategic plan, and one of the pillars is environmental stewardship. So this is a major pillar of our 5-year strategic plan, which was just approved by the board 2 months ago, excuse me. So this is a very important part of what we do.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. We also have Monica Green, who is the development director at Kestrel. Monica, you're there. Say a word about what you've already done for this grant in terms of the public presentation and your commitment going forward. Oh,
Yes, thank you, Barbara. Kestrel, as you've already said, has a connection through the conservation restriction on the land at Lathrop, but we also are connected through many of our members who are residents and who are involved along with Barbara on this project. We had a great program in the summer, early in the summer with, no, it was in the fall, with Peter Curtis, who's a member of our board and a retired botanist. We had, I think, between 40 and 50 people attend his talk, and then we had a guided walk through the property. That's the kind of program that we'd like to build on and do this year, 2025. We're just very excited about the leadership and the example that you are all setting in Easthampton with this project.
thank you, Monica.
And
All right.
Monica, when the guided walk was there, when you say 40 to 50 people, was that Lathrop residents or were people from outside the community that were there?
I think most of the attendees for the walk and the talk were residents. But I neglected to mention that we also have a core of volunteers associated with Kestrel that are mostly not residents that are interested in helping with the actual work of the invasives removal.
And there was public outreach for that event, I
There was
believe, right?
every piece of public outreach that we could think of, the whole Kestrel network, and they go all over.
Yep.
And Arcadia and Kestrel's own social media accounts, and we just got the word out as best we could, and we did get some members of the public there.
Great, thank you. All right.
Okay, so the next people that I want to call on are Mike Abel and Link Fish, who represent Bay State Forestry, and they're going to talk about the work that they already did. And here's the map. See that little 5 or 6-sided piece at the top? That's in the city of Northampton. And because Northampton funded us, that is a CR. And because Northampton funded us, we got the work done there. So Link and Mike will talk about the work that they did there. Then at the bottom is outlined in white are the 2 pieces of the Easthampton CR, 78 acres total. And that work has not been done, but Mike and Link will talk about what they intend to do on that piece in the next 3 years. Especially if we get all the money that we're asking for, then we can spend more in the first year. So Mike and Link, take it away.
Sure thing. So this past season, we did, as she mentioned, the acreage up in Northampton, which consisted of about 3 full days of work for a crew of 3 to 5 guys. With a full day of going through with chainsaws, getting the Asian bittersweet that was climbing too high for any sort of foliar application. So we did what we call a cut stump treatment, just cutting it at the base and then applying herbicide directly into the root network from there. And then with the following 2 days, then going through and applying foliar treatments to all the lower lying shrubbier stuff and any of the younger sprouts. And essentially what we'd be doing in this the 78 acres throughout Easthampton would just be the same work, just, up to a larger scale. And the important thing to highlight is that by the nature of this work, the labor is very front loaded. And so in order for it to be effective, the financing behind it will also have to be front loaded, because entering into a forest that has a pretty serious presence of invasives throughout it, but without any prior treatment, that first year of work is disproportionately more labor intensive. You have the larger plants there, the vigorous stems, oftentimes, especially on the hedgerow on the sides of fields going up and needing that preemptive chainsaw work done on it. Whereas years 2 and 3, all you're doing is you're following up and seeing any of the plants that might have been healthy enough to withstand that first year of treatment and will need, extra doses, any resprouting from the root systems that it might have survived. But it's much less labor intensive. And as a general rule of thumb, the second year will cost about half as much as the first year. And then the third year will cost about half as much as the second year. And that's just what Barbara wanted me to highlight, the nature of how it's disproportionately emphasized in the beginning in terms of how much work has to be done.
All right, Link, do you have anything to offer, to add to that?
You have to unmute yourself.
Let's try.
That mute is not on.
There we go. I'm sorry, I'm unfamiliar with this form of Zoom. But anyway, we grow older, we learn more stuff. So I just want to say what a pleasure it is to work with such a committed community of people, and the success of this kind of work really depends on follow through and retreatment and being able to treat a large enough area so all the invasive seeds don't just dump in from the surrounding land. And we have all those elements here at Lathrop. And so I have a really good feeling about this project, that we're going to do something significant, and I think be an example for other landowners and other communities of how to do this work. And I thought would just support what Mike Abel just said, that was a good explanation of why we need the money to be somewhat front-loaded. We have a whole bunch of invasives out there that are spewing seeds over the landscape. The first order of business is to get rid of all those seeds and stop that seed production. And then at that point, you're starting to improve things because you're not spewing out new seeds and new invasive plants are not germinating. So it takes more work that first year to get all of that done. And then year 2 and year 3 are just consolidating your gains. You have less work to do, and therefore it costs less.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm just recognizing, a lot of the, not for the committee members that weren't here, but for the committee members that were here last year, we heard extensive cases about this project, and we voted to show our support. There's not, to my mind, there's not a lot new other than the ask for the 2 years. Meaning that I think if in demonstrating our support the first time, not that totally binds it, but I think it's spirit that should sort of dictate a little bit how we're thinking about this now. And that we've already, I don't think we need to my mind, we don't need to sort of to hear all the sort of re-examine the case each year. I'd like the focus to be on the 2 years, asking for the 2 years as opposed to just one, which I did hear a lot of evidence of why that's valuable. Is there any other committee members that have questions about, especially about that aspect of it? And for Dan and Mary, you weren't here the first year, so really questions about anything. Yeah.
Well, to be honest, in 23, this came before us. And its first application.
Yeah,
We
no, you're
were
right.
unanimously in favor of it then, and I'm assuming you were unanimous for the first.
Right, it did come,
And given, just from my opinion, given the nature of the fact that they had trouble getting the money out of the bank, so to speak, even though they were approved by the city council and this committee, I think this two-year proposal, 69,000, is certainly valid. And it looks like, if I understand the budget, we can afford it. I'm strongly in favor of committing to the 2 years now instead of waiting another year. Because the other thing is contractors, knowing they have the work set aside for the whole project, it's actually probably more efficient and cheaper because they don't stage themselves. Am I correct on that?
That is fair to say, yes.
Yeah, so that's actually saving them money. Sorry.
no, you don't, oh, sorry, that's great. And what I appreciate your historical nudge, because you're right, this did come before us 2 years ago, and we said you needed something to have in place. I forget what it
Didn't
was.
have the money.
Well, before that though, it was before the first time, you needed to establish, it wasn't just the money,
Conservation restrictions.
conservation restriction. You needed,
Oh, I see.
when it
way
first
back.
came, way back, when,
Gotcha.
back when Dan was
That's
on the
great.
committee before, it came before us and we said, this sounds great, but we can't award you, we need a conservation restriction. And
That makes it eligible.
right,
we did,
and,
yeah.
and Lathrop then did that work to make that happen. So there you go. So thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
I have a question. Is this a private property or public property?
Holly?
Or
It's a-
is it?
Yeah, no, it's a great question.
It's a private, it's owned by Lathrop, but we do, just so you know, we do pay tax. So we pay real
Okay.
estate tax just like every other landowner in the city of Easthampton.
Okay,
Because of somehow with our tax, whatever, we're not exempt from property tax.
so that.
Oh,
the-
sorry, Mary. Go for it.
So that the people that use the space would be people that
that's a
lived in the community.
People that lived in the community or who want to walk the trails.
It is
So-
publicly
It's
accessible.
publicly
That's what I mean.
accessible,
Yeah.
Yes.
absolutely.
Publicly accessible.
Yes.
And we have trail
That's a great
maps and people can come and pick them up. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a great question. And yeah, we talked about that a lot. Yeah.
Okay. I was just gonna mention that conservation restrictions place this in eligibility for CPA funds. And because of that, it falls under open space and preservation, which allows us, Mary, to spend the funds. And we've done this for other private entities in the past,
Uh-huh.
because conservation restrictions restrict the use of it for the public.
Right.
And maintains open space.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions from the committee? My feeling on this is pretty in line with Dan Riss, and that I think I think we made this commitment, and I think especially given all the issues that there were with actually delivering the funds, and we're not talking about a huge amount of money. That said, I do think I really think it's important to keep to our quarterly schedule of looking at all the projects we have before us. But I have I don't have additional I don't need more information in order to support this project. Is there anything else that you want to say before that?
March will be fine. We can make our plans.
Great, and we invite you to come back in March for the vote. Awesome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you for coming.
Really?
Thank you.
And thank you. I noticed it seems like there's a strong Lathrop presence online, so thank you for joining us as well.
Thank you very much.
For
Or just to find out how everybody feels about it.
I mean, yeah, I think, what were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say, I might have a feeling about it now, and that feeling might be different when I see next month's projects,
Oh, okay.
So that would be the only
Makes
reason per
sense.
se.
Yeah, I mean, I think especially with this one, because we had to discuss, like, we already did, you know what I mean? Like, that's, I guess, it's not new, but,
All right, I'll come back. Fine.
all right, Valley CDC. Alexis, are you?
Yes. Hi.
How are you? Oh, Fletcher.
Sorry, my computer, the driver.
No, it's okay.
So I'm on my husband's computer. Hi, Scott. How are you?
Hey, nice to see you. All right, let us know what this is about.
Okay, so I'm gonna just do a really quick Valley overview for folks who don't know who we are, and then I'm gonna turn it over to Sarah Sargent, who is our program director. So, hi, folks. I'm Alexis Breitnecker.
Hold on 1 second, too. I just want to say, so for Mary, the difference of this application and Dan too. This is brand new before us. Like the last one was unusual actually in that we voted on like a part of it and then we were approving the next part.
Yep.
This application is brand new. So we'll have this will sort of have a lot more questions potentially and to understand what this one's about. So sorry, Alexis. Thank you.
No worries, Scott. And I do want to say too that while this application itself is brand new, this concept that we're presenting, Easthampton CPA has funded previously. So the idea for folks who have been on the committee for a while should not be new, hopefully. So I'm Alex.
And it should be pointed out that Alexis is not new to the Easthampton CPA Committee, formerly chairing this very committee.
It's very true, but it was a really long time ago.
All right, continue.
All right.
I remember you, Alexis.
I know, Greg. You overlapped with me. I can't see anybody else, so apologies if I'm missing somebody else that I was on with. Anyhow, okay. So I'm Alex. I'm the executive director of Valley Community Development. We are a 37-year-old nonprofit. We are based in Northampton, but we serve Hampshire County, and depending on what program we're looking at, we also work in Franklin and Hampden County. We have sort of 3 areas that we work in. We build and own affordable housing. We do first-time homebuyer counseling, and inclusive in that is foreclosure prevention and post-purchase counseling. And then we have a small business technical assistance program that we run. We have a staff of 11, and we serve almost exclusively low and mod income folks. And I'm going to hand it over to Sarah, who's going to talk a little bit about what we are requesting money for.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Alexis. I'm Sarah Sargent. I'm the program director. And as Alexis mentioned, this is not a new concept, but it is a brand new application for new funding. In our application, we are looking to do the Easthampton Mortgage Subsidy and Financial Literacy Program, or also known as financial education for low and moderate income households. Our program goal is to provide financial education, housing counseling services, and 3 $50,000 loan subsidies to assist low and moderate income first-time home buyers with the down payment and closing costs when buying in Easthampton specifically. The program guidelines will fit with may not exceed the CPA's annual median income level. So there is kind of a window of who is eligible and not eligible for the funding. There's always inspections of the property. Buyers must obtain a conforming mortgage. They also have to take a CHAPA certified first-time home buyer and post-purchase workshops. So there's education at the front side and at the back end of purchasing a home, as well as Valley's financial education that happens even pre first-time home buyer workshop. And there also must be a lead paint inspection required for households with children under the age of 6. The mortgage and note, or the subsidy, would be a 0% deferred payment loan at the time of closing with a term of 15 years. The loan is also due upon sale, transfer of the deed, cash out refinance that does not improve the value of the property. The subsidy must be repaid back if there's a cash out refinance that also doesn't. So the subsidies are forgiven years 6 through 15, or about $2,500 per year. The reason we're asking for this funding in our previous programs that we have run has been a lower subsidy amount of $25,000. We're asking for an increase to to make them 50,000, as that is what we are finding the gap is that low and moderate income or that 100% AMI actually needs to help get them to their first home. The household income right now for a family of 4 is 97,000, and so that monthly income is 8. Their purchase affordability is around 300,000, and then if you add in the subsidy, it's looking at about 350,000. And so you're aware, December of 2024's median household sale sold for 450,000 in Easthampton. So these families are still also having to bring a fair amount to the table, but this helps them close that gap of what they can afford. We've had successful stories with past programs, but to give you a little bit of insight on a few, some of them have had household A has had a better understanding of their household budget. They learned about the process of home ownership. They worked to reduce their debt and become debt-free prior to purchasing a home. And due to the work they did to improve their financial situation, they were able to purchase a home through Valley's program with a mortgage loan subsidy. Household B, which is not something, it's something we are seeing more and more, is they were faced with displacement due to the sale of the rental they were living in. So they sought assistance from Valley to purchase their first home. And due to the mortgage loan subsidy, they are actually able to purchase a condo. And then separate of the mortgage loan subsidy program that's also tied to this is our financial education or financial literacy. And that's where we're providing one-on-one counseling to households. And household C, our example, and actually was a client, they received one-on-one counseling to improve and understand their household budget, what they can and can't afford, and how to be able to save. They looked at breaking the cycle of living paycheck to paycheck, and they were able to do that. And they still continue to follow up with us monthly to check in on where they are and other adjustments that they can continue to make to their budget as they're looking to evaluate when they might be able to purchase a home. So that's a snapshot of of this program. We are asking for 201,875. Of that is 150,000 in subsidies. The other 52-ish is to provide the financial education, our workshops for them, work with potential buyers and providing that one-on-one education and administering the actual subsidies. And subsidies have to do, like, we spend sometimes a few years working with clients before they are ready. And that is also because timing is everything right now in the housing market still. So a lot of things have to line up for them to be able to get this subsidy. So we are working with households to try and prepare them for that purchase, even if it isn't next month, it's in a couple of years. Happy to take any questions that you have.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Alexis. Committee members, questions? Yeah, Tom.
Just one, when we had done this in the past, were all of the subsidies used?
Yeah, so I'll speak to the budget that Eva shared earlier. We do have one existing 25,000 that's sitting out there. So that is part of what is remaining in that budget that we have not spent yet.
I see. And is that available?
Some of that is finding the right person who's ready to buy, the timing to happen, and 25 isn't filling enough of a gap yet right now.
Right. But you feel that if it goes up to 50, that people, that will be?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we have 50 in other towns, and it is going.
That's only 3.
Just to follow up on that, so because this is from 2022, so what are you finding is the typical length of time that once this is awarded for this to be spent for someone to find a home?
So we're not actually awarding them until they are ready to purchase.
When I say awarding, I mean us awarding you.
Okay, yeah. We originally had some challenges at the very beginning of trying to get this marketing and going, and we're now in kind of have our routine and rhythm going here, and there are clients from that previous funding or existing funding source that are in the works and would be looking to buy in this next round.
And the 44,000, I'm just looking at our budget just to understand, because it just adds historical relevancy for this application. If I'm reading this right, the 44,000 that I believe has been allocated or been asked for, but we have not paid that out yet. Is that people that have or what is, I guess, like, why should I guess? What is that exactly? Why do we have 69,000 still remaining in our, and saying 25,000 non-encumbered, but there's 69,000 in the previous grant for this not still remains?
The financial literacy admin.
What is it?
That's my understanding, Sarah, correct me if I'm wrong, is that's the contract that the city has with Valley CDC for the financial literacy admin side of it. So that number is lower actually now, but this is reflecting Hadel's records as of January 3rd. So I just paid an invoice out on that today.
How much?
And it also, my understanding is that 69 excludes 25,000. That is for the subsidy that's left.
Right. I guess what I'm wondering is what's the other 44?
Yeah, it's our admin and our education.
I'm sorry, what?
It's for admin and education.
Scott, staff time that we mostly, I think, almost billed out for the second quarter, the October to December billing that isn't reflected here because Hatal hasn't gotten the invoice yet.
But did that staff time, was that used over the past 2 year? I guess I'm just like, it was awarded 3 years ago. Why just now?
No, we've been invoicing it down.
The past invoice was for almost $7,000. So you take out the 25 and 7, and yeah, we also have had staffing changes. We had executive director changes, start stops, and then we did ask for one extension on trying to get the money or financial literacy going a bit more.
Okay.
Also, some of it is the clients in which we see. Some of them need more or less, and some of them are trying to hit this like sweet spot of that AMI too. So our current budget, we have actually reduced our staff time to also increase the amount in subsidies that can go out.
Sarah, I got a quick question. Where else do you get funding? Like, do you get grants from someplace other than CPA? I would imagine you do.
Yeah, so this program is, go ahead, sorry.
And how much do you get?
So this program is CPA specific for Easthampton. And so when I look at the 201,000 ask, that is to run the Easthampton only program. We also receive CPA funding to run a similar program in Northampton. We receive Division of Banks funding to run other types of programming and financial literacy and first-time homebuyer education that is not specific to Easthampton. Okay. We also receive private donations, and then Valley is part of the tax credit initiative that is for CDCs, where we're also getting funding through that.
Thank you, Sarah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sarah, the total project cost of the application is 471,000.
Yep.
Am I understanding that that's the Easthampton cost? Or are you talking about overall? I just want to know how much of that 471 is dedicated to Easthampton.
So 201 is dedicated to Easthampton, plus anything that would fall outside of that we're helping people with. So the 471 is a combination of Easthampton and others, but that is where like our foreclosure prevention is happening. It's where a little bit of helping people apply for affordable housing right now through Housing Navigator. Alexis, do you want to speak any more to that? The difference?
I'm just saying that's other cities that involved or other towns as well as Easthampton.
Yes,
a small part of that.
That shouldn't be in the project cost for this application then, right? Is that what you're saying?
I'm not saying that at all. I'm just wondering. The 201, she's saying is dedicated to Easthampton.
Well, 201 is the ask from Easthampton that is dedicated to Easthampton.
But you're only going to entertain clients and applications for mortgage subsidies or financial help from Easthampton residents?
Or people
Or-
wanting to move to Easthampton. So
Oh,
the
okay.
subsidy would only be applicable to somebody who wants to buy in Easthampton. And so as you guys know, like this is a reimbursement grant. So we have to be able to invoice to get paid. And we would only invoice for time spent with clients who are looking to buy in Easthampton or already renting in Easthampton and wanting to buy in Easthampton. So we would
Got
not
it.
be drawing down funding to work with folks who live in Northampton or Amherst.
That is very helpful, the invoice part.
Just that they did submit this budget with it, so we can put that up
Yeah, I
on the
saw.
screen there.
Thank you.
Thanks,
That
Scott.
was
And sorry,
excellent.
this might be our like error too, in that we're used to being able to show like our total program costs versus like the request. So the homeownership, that's our total homeownership program costs. And then on the left side, the Easthampton CPA, which we clearly didn't, the cell cutoff part of Easthampton, the 201 is just specific to Easthampton.
Got it. So in some, I mean, and just to, so we're all on the same page. So in some ways, it is anything beyond the 201 actually going to Easthampton? Like because if not, in some ways, the project, like for the application, it should be the project cost is 201 and that's what the application is.
Great. So Scott, yes, because we're not
Okay.
including like our full amount of overhead or staff time that isn't included here. Like Sarah, there's no cost for Sarah's time billed here, but Sarah supervises 2 people. So there's a lot of like people time and some like rent and utilities and stuff that would go into Easthampton specific work that we are not including in our ask to Easthampton CPA.
Perfect.
Yes, and as well as
Oh.
foreclosure prevention, that is not part of our CPA ask.
It's a different thing. So I was just noticing that there's the mortgage subsidy cost 50,000 times 3. That's appearing in both the Easthampton CPA and so the total is inclusive of, okay, never mind, I get it.
Wait, what is it?
Sorry, budgets are so annoying.
Yeah, and so the column to the right is inclusive of everything in the column to the left, and that's why
Yes.
the 150 appears twice. Yeah, that
Totally,
makes
yes.
sense. Okay,
Yeah.
never mind.
Yeah. I got it. Mary.
Does that, am I understanding that in the end, there will only be 3 people that get money to buy houses?
Not 3
Correct.
individuals, 3 households,
3 households.
which in many of our
That's what I
households,
mean, three households.
correct. And in addition to that, several other, I mean, I don't know the number off my top of my head right now for this past report. We'll have a report in February, but others are receiving financial education as well,
Right.
separate of those 3 households. And additionally, most households exceed 4 people that these subsidies go to.
To that point, and I think this is something that came up with the pickleball discussion a couple months ago. Someone said something like, but this, is like this is for, like thousands of people. And I think it's really important as a committee that we look at this both ways, that we look at it both, broad and being able to look at something that, benefits many of our residents and deep the effect that this program has on the whether they live here yet or not, the Easthampton residents that they become is that they have a home and home ownership, which is a path out of poverty building generational wealth that that effect is, you know, extremely deep. And so I think it's just important to look at that through both lenses as we look at all these projects.
I was just amazed at how much it takes to live.
Yeah.
And, you know,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
numbers are, and so I just wanted to be sure that I was looking at that right.
Yeah, I wish we could give everybody just $1,000 subsidy and it would like take care of the problem. But what we're finding is that even like it's crazy that 25,000 isn't enough. Like 50,000 seems to be the sweet spot, and we're able to move. We have $50,000 subsidies in Northampton right now, and we're out of them. Like they've all been gone through. And the 25,000 just isn't quite cutting it, and it is awful. It is truly awful. But that's like reflective of the state of how things have gotten.
And with the 50,000, is that the way? It's a subsidy. Is that because I mean, 25,000 as a down payment, 10% is not going to get you there. 50 though might exceed some houses. Is if it exceeds, is it just for down payment, I guess, or is it if that exceeds 10%, does that go beyond? Like you'd subsidize 50,000 regardless, I guess is my question.
It's a 50,000 subsidy regardless. And if you look at the example we provided, most people were able to also help them find first-time home buyer mortgage programs where they're only having to put 3% and 5% down.
Okay.
So this adds to, you know, in addition, this helps with the down payment, but then it also helps go further than that, further than what they need.
One of the things that people get by taking first-time homebuyer classes through us or through any CHAPA certified housing counseling organization is that they have then access to these special mortgage products that have like slightly reduced interest rates, but then also allow more flexibility with down payment requirements and you know, mortgage insurance. So we are finding that home buyers are able to put a little bit less down. The other thing I just want to note is that however, we have been able to structure our subsidies with Easthampton CPA in particular. It's, even though it is a loan, it is structured somehow as a grant. And so it hasn't counted for folks' debt to income, which is awesome because the ones that we had in Amherst did count as debt, and it actually was prohibitive for some home buyers. So I don't remember quite how we structured this one in the actual contract, but we should keep it how it was because it didn't muck up the works with people's debt.
Thank you. Other thoughts? Greg.
Yeah, thanks. So I love housing and I find it perplexing sometimes. So bear with me, I guess. So these are loans. You say they count as grants, but when the home buyer pays off the loan, who gets the money? Where does it end up?
It goes back to the city.
It comes back to the CPA or to the city of Easthampton?
Yes.
Wait, say it again. I'm sorry.
Most of these loans are forgiven at year 15, right? Is that?
Yes.
Yeah, but
only
so if a
the-
buyer like buys and then sells 2 years later, they're obligated to repay the remaining amount of the loan, and it goes back to the city.
Okay.
So this,
In other words, over the course of 15 years, if they haven't sold the house, the loan, the 50,000 is completely forgiven.
Correct. And this is an attempt, like with a short-term affordability restriction, to allow people, as Scott mentioned earlier, accumulate some equity in their home. So if they remain in their home over time and then sell, we want them to be able to have the full value of the equity. So if we required repayment at year 20 of the original 50 that they borrowed, we're like essentially removing equity. So we're encouraging folks to stay in for a period of time, but not penalizing them after 15 years. And Greg, housing is confoundingly confusing. So like, welcome to the club. I'm scratching my head most days.
No, I was just kind of confused because I'm not sure I've seen any money come back to the city. Have we seen money come back to the city on
Nobody
these?
sold.
Yeah, nobody has sold that's been in this program so far.
Great.
Oh, so they're not paying as they go for that 15-year period?
No, it's 0% deferred payment.
Zero interest.
Yeah, it's 0 interest. So there's nothing happening.
I understood it was 0 interest. I just thought there were principal payment, like it was a
No.
0% financed situation.
No.
Okay.
Greg, you want to look at our audited financials and I'll show you how wackadoo all these loans and notes are because we have them for all of our affordable housing developments too, and they make my brain hurt.
Oh, I believe it. I believe it. And I'm a numbers guy, so yeah.
Anything from the committee as far as what the Valley CDC will be coming back to us in March. Is there anything that you'd like to see or questions you want answered before that meeting?
I don't think so right now.
Yeah.
I could use a little bit of information on, you had mentioned that you didn't have off the top of your head the number of people who had previously benefited from the education component. So that could be useful, just as a little bit of extra information. I don't know if it's going to make or break it, but
Sure,
it
but I
would be
think
interesting.
that's great.
Yeah, I'm happy to provide that information. Ava, I'll get it to you later next week if that's okay.
Yeah, that sounds great.
And I think it would be helpful to understand also just the outstanding money on the previous award. To just understand really where that's at, because just as a committee, we really want to, when we're awarding funds, we want them to be spent in the way that we award them to. And so we just to understand, okay, what money was awarded 3 years ago, where is that at now? I think to have that laid out would be helpful.
Absolutely. And also we've had discussion internally a bit about this other current 25,000 that is remaining. This cycle that we're on will expire on February 15th. And so if it's still floating there, if it is of interest to CPA to roll that into this next round and reduce our 201 ask, we're open to having that conversation too.
Yeah, that's helpful too, because I wonder budgeting if this is still, well, actually, because we could potentially, because money that it would hit our budget that we couldn't award to the next year, but it would be, they could spend it on this. I mean, it's the same program. So they could combine funds from a previous program and this one potentially, right?
I think
Right. I think that would be within, so.
I think you could appropriate funds to the same existing account.
Or even if it's different accounts, they can spend those to the same, they can pull from different accounts to go to the same person.
Yep.
And combine it, right? I mean, sorry, this is a little bit of internal accounting on our end. Because that's really helpful. I mean, one of the things that you guys should know where we're at is, we have a little more money than we thought we did, but we awarded a lot of big grants, big projects in the past year. And so we're really looking at maximizing every dollar. And so if that 25,000 isn't spent, to be able to incorporate, essentially keep that for you, but then reduce this ask 25,000, and then you'd be able to use that combined with what we would award you. That could be really helpful.
Yep.
Thank you. Anything else from the committee?
Greg has his hand up.
Greg.
Oh, yes, thanks. So just one more question. Is this an ongoing program, or is there a certain duration on your side for this program? I mean, I'm just trying to understand the timing.
So
I'm kind of piggybacking a little bit on Scott's, thinking that we're at a moment with the CPA committee just of competition for dollars, and in a way that we haven't been in the past. So I'm kind of curious what drives the timing right now.
I mean, it is a program that we have run one other, like the first cycle that we're currently in is the first time we've run this program with Easthampton. We, by running it, have found what is working and not working, and what residents are needing or those interested in moving into Easthampton. A lot of it comes down to timing on a buyer's side for the subsidy portion. The financial education piece comes at any time and kind of where people are in their life. So some people need it now, some people might be interested in, a year or two, but it's the subsidy piece that is, I think, out of our ask, probably the most crucial piece, because it is knowing those funds are available allows us to market and continue working with current clients and potential new ones, so that when that house comes on the market that they're ready for, they know that they are approved for those funding. Because the market is so challenging right now still.
Yeah, I was going to say, we are also trying to take advantage of the fact that interest rates have come down just a tick. And knowing the slightly crazy climate we are walking into for the next 4 years. So we felt like, the time was nigh to reapply. So here we are.
Great, thanks.
Anything else, committee members? All right, we're on a quarterly cycle now, so we're really trying to hear from applications January, for this quarter, January, February. So we'll vote on this in March, and so we'd love to have you come back then, answer the questions that we've asked, and any additional info, and then we'll go from there. Any other thing from the committee? Thoughts, feelings? Anything else? Alexis, Sarah? All right.
No,
thank you so much.
Thank you.
Scott, before we move to the pre-application letters, does the committee want to review the budget, or review the account balance?
Sure.
So earlier in the night, we looked at the purple line, the line I've highlighted right here. The line 45 down here. So this includes those two projects we just heard, Lathrop, years 2 and 3, Valley CDC, mortgage subsidy, financial literacy. The $25,000 reduction was news to me tonight, so that's not included in here. And then also, and I did include this perhaps for some discussion tonight, though it may be something we want to push off to the February meeting, given the current status of ongoing discussions upstairs around, but that there was a conversation at the budget meeting in February of 2024, the fiscal 25 budget. No money was set aside for Old Town Hall last year.
Right.
But there was a discussion about leaving an extra $250,000 in the budgeted undesignated fund balance, also known as the reserve fund, which is separate from the safe harbor reserve. We're going to call the safe harbor reserve something else soon.
All right, keep going.
So there was a conversation about, that was a conversation in that budget cycle. And so I included it here as sort of a pending application. That's not quite the right word for it.
Yeah.
But, and that was to reduce the bonding amount that the city would eventually have to bond for to fund Old Town Hall at the $3.25 million promised in 2022.
So essentially what this is it was saying, okay, if we approved everything that is out there before we, not including the things that haven't been applied, that we're about to hear from the skate park and non-attack spray park, if we did all that, and I think there's a discussion to be had over the Old Town Hall that I don't want to have tonight because we got other things in the agenda, but I think maybe for February we should put that on there. But that we would have essentially 471. Is that what you're saying? Total, right?
Yep.
Okay. Helpful to keep in mind. Yeah. Awesome. All right, Dan, you have a question?
Well, we have future FY funding appropriations, Ferry Street.
That's for the,
That's for fiscal year 26.
because it was that we vote, you were here for that, right?
Yeah,
We
yeah.
voted 3 years, 200,000.
That's not being subtracted from this.
Nope. So, but fiscal year 25, 11 Ferry Street has been already appropriated for fiscal 25.
Right.
Yeah, so that's another 200,000 in 26. A different.
Right, yeah, because we did that.
We did,
multiple years.
yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I think it's worth considering though, in the bigger picture of what money we have available, because even though it's, the earmark for Old Town Hall is not appropriated. That's what's qualitatively different from the Ferry Street money, but
Yeah.
they're both set aside money that essentially we don't have. So, I kind of feel like the relevant, I'd almost like to see the appropriated dollars higher above the pending applications, because we've committed to doing those, even though it's in a future period.
That's true. I could show that. Would the committee like to see, next time you get an available balance, would you like to see the full 1.116 that you've agreed to for the Old Town Hall, but is not yet appropriated on this balance worksheet?
Not for the fiscal year. I mean,
But for in the future fiscal funding appropriations, I can add that.
Greg thinks it would be helpful.
No, I'm not saying that for Old Town Hall. I'm saying that
You're saying that for Ferry Street.
for Home City, right? Like that in some ways, it's like the pending applications. I mean, the earmark has been decided on, so I mean, it's not really pending. It's pending in a sense, in that it hasn't been appropriated, but we did vote on it.
I think it's only there because it will hit the books once we have a refresh of money, right? So it's like, that's why it feels pulled up.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I don't know what the best way to, but I just don't want that Ferry Street to get lost. I don't consider any sort of lower down than, sort of just recent pending applications. We've locked in and appropriated those dollars. So we have to consider them.
But there will be fiscal 26 funding
coming in.
when
But it's good to
that
keep on.
appropriation occurs.
That's right.
All right, let's move to Spray Park. John, take it away.
Good evening. I just want to give a quick update. I know you guys have been there for a while, and I don't want to take up too much of your time. Welcome back, Dan, first of all. We have submitted the grant, so it is off for the Land Water Conservation Fund for the Spray Park. We're looking at $529,000 total, with $264,500. It's a 50% federal match reimbursements, very similar to the park grant, except it's a 50% match instead of the 68 that we try to go or get from the park grant. I had a meeting with the mayor a couple weeks ago. She wanted me to look at putting in for funding for the fourth quarter for the April application period. So my timeline that was written to you guys said maybe July sometime or later for looking for funding, but because of the importance of this project and the environmental impact that it has, and that she wants to get this moving forward. So I will be doing that. And this project also could be a project that is funded over 2 years. Usually it's very late fall when you hear if you're awarded the funding, and nothing can be done for almost a year from now if we are awarded the funding. They look at late December, beginning of January. So we'd be looking at January of 2026 for design, big bid docs, things of that nature. The funding cycle goes until funding has to be spent by December of 2027. So it's a longer drawn out process compared to what the park grant is. Just those are the updates from the letter for you folks. And when I do come, I'll come with a more information and designs and costs, a breakdown of actual cost estimates and those types of things, and answer any questions. But I know you guys have a lot of projects and a lot of good things happening and I know it's important to get this information to you guys.
In the past, with certain projects, and I don't know if the park grant requires it, do you need a CPA commitment of these funds in order to get the park grant? Or is that's not the case in this particular one? I know we've had that for some years.
So what we'd have here is we would have to have a city resolution and vote that, because it's reimbursable, that the city would upfront the 529 and then decide where, how, you know, the 264.5, and then whether it be 264.5 from straight from CPA or capital or free cash, whatever it may be. So having the funding commitment prior to announcing is of receiving the grant is not necessary per se, but it does look good. As the way it works is the state approves it first, and they usually do this within the first 100 days of applying. And then if you get past the state, then it goes to the federal government, and then the federal government is the ultimate awarder of this funds. So the park grant goes to the state, and they determine yes or no. This one actually has 2 phases. That's why it's kind of a drawn out process, and it's almost will be a year away before we get into the construction docs and those types of things to get the project.
Follow up. We could budget this over 2 years in order to spread out our funds. In other words, give you half fiscal year 25 and half we could commit like we did for Ferry Street.
Yeah, so that would be
hurt you, in other words.
Yeah, that would be to ease a burden on this committee and the folks. That would be what I would be leaning towards. Absolutely, because it spreading out over 2 years makes it a little easier for everyone.
Jay.
John, what's the CPA ask? Is it 164.5?
No, the CPA ask is going to be 264.5.
It is.
I always try to make sure.
Boy.
I like to. This is not an ask. This is just what I submit to them. I would like to see, other funds other than the CPA, whether it's capital or free cash, that would help offset. As we saw with the pool project, we did a similar thing of looking at other funds, and ultimately the mayor wanted us to go all the way to CPA for that. So
where's the 100,000 come from for municipal? What's that?
That could be free cash or capital, and that's where talking. I had a meeting with the mayor talking about potential, options of going that route. So it's ultimately up to her where she would say, no, I'm not going to fund this through capital for the 100,000, or I'm not going to fund it through free cash. And that's why come April, that number will look defined, whether it's going to be 264.5 or we'll stay at the 164.5.
Okay.
Okay, so the budget that we have on the screen here says 164.5, but the application might end up being for 264.5.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's why I was meeting with her and getting legwork on this to get done. One of the things I did, I had a conversation with Deputy Chief Benson earlier this week. This is a designated cooling center for the city and the fire department. So when they release cooling centers within the city during hot times in the summertime, they extend hours at various places. This is actually a defined cooling center. So the fire department will say spray park hours have been expanded from 9 o'clock in the morning to 8 o'clock at night for a free resource for cooling. So when I talked to Deputy Chief Benson about this, about potentially looking at any grant dollars that are available for cooling centers or anything like that. So we're going to go down that avenue as well and see if there's anything that we can apply for that will help offset any CPA or city responsibility.
Just to piggyback on what Dan was saying, the two splitting it might be helpful also just from a cash on hand perspective from this committee, because obviously the end of the fiscal year is the end of June. If you're able to apply April or May, that would be the first presentation, and then we'd be voting on it in June. But we might not have whatever amount you're requesting available at that point.
Yeah, I can't do anything until this, there would be no funds expended before December of 2025, based on the grant. It's basically written right into the grant that you wouldn't be expending any money before 11 months from now.
Great.
And all these funds, our CPA funds, are pending the grant being approved.
Correct.
If we don't get the grant this cycle, then everything is delayed a year or two.
Absolutely.
Well, we know, I'm sorry.
Bye, Greg.
Gotta go. Sorry, folks.
No worries. Thanks.
Bye.
Good night.
All right.
So like I said, I just wanted to put it on your guys' radar. There's a lot of good projects going on in the city, and we'll be coming back with, a grant application and have more of your questions answered as we get towards April and May.
Yeah, it's really, really helpful for this committee to hear from this, to know this is coming up. Just where we're at. So we really appreciate that. And I want to say again, we appreciate you looking at the funds with the Stonehouse and, like being able to figure that out either way, because that obviously factors into the total amount we've got available to. So thank you.
Like I said, I have that conference call tomorrow, and we're gonna shake it out and see where we are with how much more they need, and what the next steps are. So I will have a commitment one way or the other for you for February meeting.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a good night.
All right. Thanks so much, John.
Thanks,
Thank you,
John.
John.
Great park.
All right.
Okay.
Skate park. Jeffrey.
I know that guy. Is he still alive?
Jeff, you there?
He's working on it.
Jeff, before you start, is your picture that comes up when you're not there, is that the bike lane on Williston Avenue?
It is. It is what was. Yep.
That's kind of hard for me to see, but that's okay.
Good evening, everyone. I wasn't really planning on speaking, but I would give an update. I think you probably have received an email from Eddie Comini. He's kind of the spokesperson for the skate park group. I'm Jeff Bagg. I live at 49 Taft Ave. I'm here as a resident, and I've been volunteering to help the skate park project move forward. We put together an application, narrative and information, and a budget and appendices information, which I don't know if you actually got. And then we had a meeting with the new planning director, and before Allison, said anything really, she wanted to meet with the mayor and John Mason. So they had a meeting recently, which we haven't really been debriefed on. But the mayor said that she wants to wait a little bit. And then I think there seems to be a question of whether the mayor wants to let a department take on this project. So as a group of volunteers and an informal committee, we really can't receive the CPA money on our own, and we can't apply for that park grant on our own. So we do need a city department to be our sponsor. And so it seems like the mayor's in the process of reviewing that, and the email that she said is seeing where it fits in the timing of other city priorities. So we're in a bit of a holding pattern, but we're hopeful that we'll apply in the fourth quarter. And if we, if the planning department or parks department were willing to apply for the CPA money in the fourth quarter, a vote by June would line us up really well to have the city apply for that park grant in July. So that's the goal. The one final thing I would just say is that, the CPA's previous request is still active, and with some help from Ava and others, including DPW and the Parks Department, there are going to be some test pits done at Millside Park to kind of check the permeability of the soil for stormwater. And so those test pits are actually scheduled, I think, for next week. And the mayor wanted to wait until we get the results of those to have the conversation about whether the project moves forward or not as a city, if it's important enough for the city to move forward. So we hope to be back in the fourth quarter. And I just said it was the last thing I was going to say. In the revised numbers, we did increase the potential ask to CPA up. We talked last time about 150,000, and to cover some contingencies and have a contingency in the budget, we did increase it to 175,000. So we increased it by 25,000. And in the application, the group and everyone involved, there's a lot of parents of school-age children who are in the background behind the scenes are committing to fundraising 75,000 towards the cost of the project, which is it's going to be a huge lift. But we think that if CPA were on board, and I think as member Riss just mentioned, the money would only get spent if the park grant is ultimately awarded. That's a $500,000 grant. And so as those two steps move forward, we feel like we would have a lot of momentum to really raise public awareness. We don't have a skate park. We're not in the same situation as pickleball, where we have courts that are overutilized and kind of use that to leverage. We're really starting from scratch. So I think that's really it. Hopefully that's helpful. And if there's questions, I'm here for them. Thanks.
So Millside Park is the site. That's where you're doing the tests, correct?
That's correct. Yep. And because the Parks Commission
is a Park and Rec Commission. They're just waiting on this, but where are they with this? Because it's in park land, as I understand it, they got to say yes to it.
Yeah. Back in September, I believe it was, the Parks Commission voted to approve allowing the project to go forward at Millside. And then
trying to catch up.
Yep. And then we did have some communications with John Mason. So he gave the approval to have the test pits done. And then we were using that the previous CPA request to hire GZA, the consultant, to do those in coordination with DPW. They've been very helpful. They're volunteering to bring out equipment to dig the holes and things like that. And so, there's definitely some movement forward. We're just hoping that it's a temporary pause and that we can be back before you at that fourth quarter deadline.
I'm sorry to hear about potential delays, but because I know this project has come before this committee multiple times, and I think there's a lot of value for this project for the city. So hopefully it will keep moving forward. We'd love to be able to have it officially coming forward, at least for me.
So
yeah,
why can't it officially come forward again? Because you have to do tests on that land. To the CPA.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's two parts, which is, yes, there's some due diligence that the skate park designers actually wanted to have the test pits done so they can get a better sense of what's going on there. And then it'll help with the stormwater. But the other part of it is that we are volunteers and residents of Easthampton trying to help, persuade the city to move forward with this project. And we really need to have a city department take it over and be the responsible party to hold the CPA funds, because it's not solely funded by CPA. So I think like with pickleball, the CPA funds are the final step and they can go out to bid in construction, but they're also working directly with the Parks Department. Whereas we need a city department to take the CPA funds and then also be the department who applies for the park grant. So, park grants require that a municipality be the applicant. And so we're in this holding pattern to have the mayor kind of help decide where it falls in the city priorities.
Thank you.
Any questions? All right. Thank you, Jeff. Definitely appreciate you keeping us updated on this project.
Great. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it too.
Thank you,
Thanks, Jeff.
All right.
So just before we end, I just want to project one more time the available balance worksheet. I did create a new tab that I just want to really make sure that everyone is on board that everything we've heard today, the committee could not fund all 4 of those projects in full, along with the earmark for Old Town Hall. That blue number is a death. It's like in the red.
Yeah.
So I just want to make
Even though
everyone
it's in
really
blue.
clear.
You put the skate park and you put the spray park in there. right?
Exactly. So and the earmark for Old Town Hall, but that's not including the fiscal 26 funding. So I just want the committee to just be considering this. Obviously, we have to consider the third quarter applications as they are, but given that we've heard these pre-applications, that there is some weighing the projects against each other.
Can I ask, did you guys previously vote on the earmark for Old Town Hall, or is that's just something you talked about?
Yeah.
So it's not been voted on?
It has not been.
Because we used to do that at the budget for
Right.
fiscal year 26, so it wouldn't come out of.
I think we left it out this year because of
Because of Ferry Street and everything.
well, because we just have a lot less money. And so it was like, let's keep it in mind there. The update that I'll give, I did actually talk to the mayor about Old Town Hall in regard to the application that was that we voted on last month to sort of consolidate those awards. And one option that she said that could be done, or let me just back up for a second. I did mention to her, I was like, I know when we've talked about that with bonding, there was a concern, and part of this came from Greg, is that number now too small to bond for effectively, essentially?
1 million.
Yeah, and I was like, could that potentially still be could that be bundled with other city projects in bonding? And her response to that was yes, it could be. So that's a potential option. And B, that there also is an option of a potential short-term note with the state that I don't know all the details of, but essentially that there could be a way to borrow that money from the state short-term and then have that be funded through a bond that would be later on. And you might know more about this than me. To the end, the main point that I have there is that while we were doing, I think, a really smart thing in putting away $250,000 every year to be able to reduce that money down. Where I'm at now, I'm leaning more toward if there's a way where we could cover this in bonding, it would give us flexibility to do some of these other things, even though it's a much smaller number because of what we did before. And so there are options to be able to do that. So that's the update I got from my conversation with the mayor.
Just for historical purposes, we originally did that because we thought if we were going to bond $3 million, what would be the payment?
Yeah.
So if we're only bonding $1 million, payment's a lot less. So maybe we don't put aside 250, maybe we put aside 100. In other words, if we want to do it, but the other reason for that was to keep us from bonding at all.
Right.
So I hear you, and I think that's a better way to go. Bonding maybe, but that's phase 3 for City Hall, Old Town Hall, and that's not going to come for a while. So because they have that, the cost of that is a lot more than $1 million. They're going to have to find like $2 million more to do phase 3.
Yeah.
So I don't think we need to worry about it as much now. We should fund the other projects. In other words, setting aside the 250. I'm a huge supporter of Old Town Hall, but all these other projects are pretty valuable too.
Yeah.
So.
And I appreciate you saying that. I mean, because historically, and Mary's.
If I could give her the money from the city's free cash, I'd do that.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm not gonna do it. I don't have any authority.
You've been one of the biggest supporters of that project all along, and so I did want you to know that certainly wasn't a reflection on the value of Old Town Hall. It was only in reaction to our
No,
current
and
fiscal.
I see that we've got all these applications, and you gotta be realistic, because realistically, they gotta find a lot more money for phase 3.
Yeah.
So let's put off worrying about how we're gonna pay for that until that becomes, I'd like them to see get started with all phase 2. It seems to be up in the air.
So I will put Old Town Hall, I'll put the set aside on the February agenda.
Sure, it's good.
If we wanted to.
Sure, I think it warrants a bigger discussion, but or it warrants a more thorough discussion, but.
Yeah, we should
might-
do it without putting it on the agenda. But the other question I have for you is budget wise, we have to put a budget in for FY 26. Is that
Yeah.
next meeting?
Yeah, we'll discuss the budget at next meeting. And as of now, I have not received any other applications for this quarter, which means there are no more applications for this quarter.
Right.
Right. So we shouldn't have any new applications for third quarter to consider at the February meeting. Both of the applications I received presented at this
If we
meeting
get them, they're not gonna be talked about till March or
till April.
whatever that.
Even if they're, because the deadline, we say the deadline is,
January 2nd or
Second.
so then why, why would we ever have, under those deadlines though, how would we ever have things presented to us in that second meeting?
I offered both to Lathrop and Valley CDC whether they'd like to present at the January or February meetings.
Yeah.
So the idea was if we had a considerable load of applications, we would spread them out. Or if we had a question, if we had an application we knew that was perhaps less complete, we could hear it at the January meeting, request that they return with the February meeting with more information.
Okay, that makes sense.
But also in the third quarter, we do have to talk about the budget at the February meeting. So
Yeah,
the
so
February
that's gonna
meeting
take time.
will occur regardless.
And talking, yeah,
And you're gonna put that together like Jamie used to do.
Yeah, right.
no, gonna put it together like Ava does. It's not about
I'm
the
just
past.
sorry, I'm.
We gotta move forward.
Can I move that we adjourn?
Yes,
Second.
perfect. All in favor, Greg's not even here.
Greg's not here.
All in favor? Aye, perfect.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.